Wondering what the major difference is between townhomes and condos versus single family homes? Well, in this video, I'm gonna show you exactly some things you might be aware of and definitely some other items you didn't even think of. So make sure you stick around to get all the details. See you on the other side. All right, guys, like I mentioned in this video, we're gonna go over the major differences between townhomes and condos and single family homes. You may be a first-time home buyer, or maybe just a buyer who's purchasing in Hawaii for the first time. There are some major differences between townhomes and condos that may be somewhat obvious when you compare it to single family homes, but there may be some things you may have not thought of, which we're gonna cover in this video. With that being said, if this is your first time here, let me quickly introduce myself. My name is Patrick Longley, licensed realtor out here in Hawaii and have been for nearly a decade, helping buyers, sellers, and investors with their real estate needs. So if you have any questions or just want to talk story, I got my contact information right here, or you can directly DM me on any of my social media platforms. With that being said, let's battle it out and show you the differences between townhomes and condos and single family homes. So the first thing we want to go over is the definition. What is an actual condo? What is a townhome? What is a single family home? Now out here in Hawaii, townhomes and condos are kind of interchangeable, but there are some definite definitions or things that actually separate the two. So a condo is generally going to be a skyscraper or a building that has many levels to it, and generally there's going to be a floor where those levels are split up into multiple units where you would be sharing walls left to right, top to bottom. That's generally going to be a condo. Now a townhome on the other end is usually if you took a condo and you put it sideways. So basically what we have is usually we'll have one unit, then another unit, then another unit. Sometimes they'll have them stacked, but generally they're not going to have townhomes that have more than 2 levels. So you might have a level down below and a level up above, but that would still be somewhat considered a townhome. Now again, with townhomes and condos generally will not have a garage whatsoever. You'll have covered or uncovered parking, or sometimes no parking at all. And townhomes, depending on what side of the island you are or how new they are, they might have covered parking, or sometimes they actually have a garage. The next thing we want to go over is single family homes. Now this can be pretty straightforward, but what a single family home is generally a standalone structure that you're not sharing any walls. Sometimes you'll have a yard, and you're generally not sharing any walls to the left, right, above, or below. Now in some areas, we have single family homes that are CPR, which stands for condominium property regime, which is basically saying there may be something that is shared between multiple properties. So we do see this a lot in certain parts of Ewa, certain parts of Kapolei, as well as out here in Kailua, and specifically like Coconut Grove area, where there might be a shared amenity. That shared amenity might be a driveway. So maybe there's a driveway that goes up and then it shoots off to one property and shoots off to another property. Or maybe you have a single family home and another single family home attached to it. And maybe there's one wall that's actually shared and they share the roof as well. Because there's a shared amenity, it technically has to be qualified as a CPR, condominium property regime, because they're sharing something, a wall, a driveway, something of that nature. Now those CPRs may or may not have HOAs. They generally do, but they're usually pretty low because they're not a big complex or condo that has all the same plumbing to it. Now, some of these CPRs generally will have a small HOA, could be nothing, could be 25 bucks, could be 300 bucks, depending on where it's located. But it is something to keep in mind because you might look at a single family home and go, that looks too cheap. And generally you're gonna see valuations of CPRs to be a little bit lower than a single family home that has no association, no shared walls, no shared roof, things of that nature. Now, a big part of when you're deciding whether to buy a condo or a townhome or a single family home is generally gonna be the price. So the median price for a condo right now again, it can go lower, it can go higher, is $530,000. But again, you can find studios and 1-bedrooms in that 300 to 350 range. This is just the median. And for a single family home, the median sales price is $1,070,000. So you can see there's a huge gap between the two. So if you're like, oh, well, I prefer to have a single family home, just keep in mind that generally the direction we go is gonna be how much you get pre-approved for, but more importantly, what you're comfortable when it comes to that monthly payment for that mortgage payment. So that's generally gonna help you decide which route you go is gonna be that price point. Now, let's say you've decided on whether you're going condo or townhome or single family home based on how much you got approved. There is a simple concept to help you on deciding what area or what place you'd want to live in for that condo, townhome, or single family home. And that's going to be the 3-leg strategy, which is basically you can only get 2 of the 3 options here when it comes to shopping for a home, similar to when you're buying food or if you're going to a restaurant. So the concept essentially is when you're buying food is you can only have something when it comes to speed, price, and quality, you can only have 2 of them. So if you want something that's fast and it's good, well then the price is going to be high. Or if you want something that's fast, but not that good, well, then the price is gonna be pretty good. So this can really be translated into real estate as well if we just shift these 3 items just a tap. So that's gonna be location, size, and price. So if you want something that's in a killer location, let's say it's in Kailua, but you want the size to be large, well, the price is gonna be super high. Or let's say you wanna be in a location that's not as desirable, but you get a lot of square footage, well, then the price is gonna be more attractive. So it all just depends on the 3-leg strategy. And when it comes to buying a home, I always like to tell my clients that it's a process of elimination, not so much selection. Because we have such low inventory out here, you really wanna just kind of set expectations of what you want in a home, what those wants are, what those needs are, and kind of prioritize them accordingly. And just keep in mind the 3-leg strategy. You usually can't get all 3. Somewhere there's gonna be a sacrifice, whether that's gonna be in price, location, or square footage. Next thing I want to discuss is appreciation rate. So I made 2 videos recently. It goes over the appreciation rates of a couple different neighborhoods when it comes to single family homes as well as condos. But in both of those videos, it's pretty obvious that the appreciation rate specifically for single family homes is significantly larger than it is for condos. Now, the reason behind this, or the theory behind this, is because a single family home can be very unique in its own sense, where you could have one house here that's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,500 square feet, and another house right here that's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath that's 1,500 square feet, but they might have different designs, different quality of renovations, different layout, different views. And with that, you can have a larger gap in the price. Now with condos and townhomes, generally they're all built with the same exact layout, generally the same view, maybe one's on a higher floor or on a different side of the building, but we don't see a huge fluctuation in differences between the 2 units unless it's just different flooring, different paint, different cabinets. But you're not gonna see a huge difference, so we're not gonna see a huge appreciation rate when it comes to condos and townhomes. But keep in mind, it's all about just getting into the game. The condo and townhome, if that's what you can afford, it just allows you to get into the game, build that appreciation, maybe not as grandiose as single family homes, but it allows you to get into the game, build some appreciation equity, and then leverage that later to step up and purchase a single family home. But don't take my word for it. I did pull some data to show you what was the median sales price for a condo and single family home back in 2019, and then fast forward 5 years later to now, and what the median sales price is so we can get an appreciation rate. So across the entire island, keep in mind this data could be skewed on those penthouses, the condos, and the condos that are maybe not the most desirable area, but across the board, we are seeing an appreciation rate over the last 5 years for condos to be about 18%. And again, that's over 5 years. And for single family homes, it was about 26%. So both really good appreciation rates, but we are seeing that one is battling and beating the other, but there's a large cash gap between the two. So it does take some money to get into it, but either way, again, it's about getting into the game, jump on that appreciation train and ride it for as long as possible so that you can step up to that single family home eventually. Okay, now let's go over the pros and cons, more specifically when it comes to single family homes versus condos and townhomes. So condos and townhomes, pros. Number 1, less CapEx expenses or capital expenditures. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, if you are living in a condo or townhome, you are part of an association. Now that association is generally responsible to maintain certain aspects or the integrity of that building. For example, that might be the plumbing, the roof, the foundation, the elevator. You are not directly paying for this, but you are paying through it through your HOAs. But that cost is spread across all of the owners in that complex. So if you've got a condo that you own and maybe there's 300 units, if there is a plumbing issue, the cost to replace that plumbing issue is not just on you, it's spread across everybody. Compared to if you were buying a single family home, if the plumbing goes out or if you need to replace the roof, that's all on you. You are not spreading that cost with any other owners because you are the sole owner. Pro number 2 is less management. So once again, if there's an issue that comes up with the plumbing that's not directly in your unit, but maybe the plumbing stack that everybody shares, that is essentially an association's responsibility. Also, if you have a railing that maybe that's on your lanai that's loose or maybe is deteriorating, again, anything usually outside of your actual unit is gonna be the association's responsibility. So again, you're kind of pushing on that responsibility over to the association. If you're in a single family home, you're responsible for everything. Pro number 3 is cheaper on the initial price. So again, generally, as we saw before, that the median sales price for condos is gonna be almost half what it is for single family homes. So it allows you to get into the real estate market and build that equity. So it's gonna be easier on the pocket on the front end. And the last pro is gonna be security or gated areas. So generally these condos or associations, not all of them have this, but they'll usually have some kind of security, or maybe the parking is actually covered and gated. So there is a sense of a little bit more security with a condo or townhome because there is somebody else looking out in your best interest. to make sure that everybody's safe and no one's stealing anything. Okay, now let's get into the cons of condos and townhomes. Con number one for townhomes and condos is going to be HOA rules. So there's going to be certain rules. Maybe it might be how many pets you can have, what you have to do in regards to renovations and getting things approved, whether you're putting in new floors, sometimes you have to get that approved by the association. You're gonna be adding new plumbing or adjusting certain plumbing, you have to use a licensed plumber. These are all rules that you may have. Or maybe you can't play loud music after 10 p.m. These are rules that are put in place to kind of protect everybody, but they can be annoying if you have a certain lifestyle and you don't like somebody telling you what you have to do. Con number two is special assessments. So let's sit down, let's understand what this is, because this is a big con when it comes to condos and townhomes. Like we discussed before, those expenses, those capital expenditures that might come up, like again, having to replace all of the plumbing, and we're seeing this a lot in Waikiki for these buildings built in 1970, they're all having the same issue. If they didn't save enough money to replace that plumbing that needs to be replaced because it's leaking everywhere, well, guess what? You are essentially a part owner of that building, which means your association dues that you pay every single month go into a reserve account. And if they don't have enough money in those reserves to fix that plumbing issue, what they're gonna do is go to every single owner and say, hey, based on your square footage and your percentage of ownership, this is gonna cost us $12 million to replace this plumbing. So we need everybody to pay us $25,000 right now. And that can be a huge surprise that nobody wants to get. So this is something that I help my clients with when we are exploring the condo documents, looking at the financial health of the building, what are future projects, current projects, so that we can kind of anticipate what might happen. It's not always a guarantee, but it is something we like to look into because this is something we are seeing happening a lot, more specifically in the Waikiki area or any of those buildings built in the 70s. Third con is parking restrictions. So essentially when you buy a unit, you either are assigned a parking spot or not assigned a parking spot, or sometimes that'll just be a free range. When you show up, you gotta find a spot. If there's not one, you gotta park on the street. So again, if you own a single family home, you got a driveway. No one's gonna take your spot. You can park in any fashion you want. And that is something you have to keep in mind is when you're buying a condo, generally you will have an assigned parking spot, but there are parking restrictions. And con number four, like we discussed before, is slower appreciation compared to single family homes. Okay, now let's jump over to single family homes and the pros and cons. Pro number one, no rules. So like I said before, with condos and associations, they are gonna have a stack of condo documents and a stack of rules. If you own a single family home, you can have as many dogs as you want. You can have some chickens if you want. Basically, you can do whatever you want, given that you don't do anything radical that the Department of Planning and Permitting would want to require you to have a permit for, but generally you don't have anybody looking over your shoulder telling you what you can or can't do with your property. Pro number two is no HOAs. Now this is a stipulation because there are some single family homes, more specifically in the Kapolei, Ewa area, or in these PUDs, planned urban developments, where they may have an association and it's still a single family home, but those are gonna be in kind of those gated communities or areas where developers built a bunch of single family homes. But generally, you are not gonna have an association due. So you're not gonna have to pay $300, $500, $600, $800 every single month to an association. If you own a single family home, you're in a neighborhood and you don't have that extra cost. So that's a huge pro. Pro number three is less parking restrictions. So like we discussed before, you got a driveway, you can park in a driveway, no one's gonna take your driveway spot. So you don't have any parking restrictions per se when it comes to a single family home. And the fourth pro, and one of my favorite, is better appreciation. So like we discussed before, single family homes generally have much better appreciation than condos, but if you can't get into it, just keep in mind the condo and townhome just allows you to get into the game. Now let's get into the cons. There's a lot of pros. What are the cons of a single family home? Number one is CapEx, or capital expenditures. So like I said before, if you own the single family home, you own all the responsibility. If the roof is leaking, the roof needs to be replaced, the foundation is cracking, all that is on you. There's nobody to spread the cost. And that could be a $20,000 to $30,000 fix that you have to come out of pocket just to replace the roof for your single family home, and it cannot be shared really with anybody else. Con number two is you manage everything. So if the plumbing goes out, it's on you. If the foundation is cracking, it's on you. If something's not working, it's on you. So you own the property, you own all the responsibility. There's nobody you can really call to blame or tell them they have to fix it. It's all on you. And the third con is that some single family homes, as I mentioned before, do have HOAs. So you kind of have these hybrid single family homes, like I said, in Ewa and Kapolei, and these PUDs, planned urban developments, where you do get the vibe of a single family home, but you still do have an HOA fee, or you still do have somebody looking over your shoulder and telling you what color you can paint the house, or whether your grass needs to be trimmed to a certain length, or how high your fence can be. So there are certain stipulations and rules and things you have to keep in mind when you're looking for a single family home. Generally, you're gonna see those lower price point single family homes are gonna be in those PUDs because they kind of factor in what that HOA is gonna be. And the market's very smart. Usually adjust the price accordingly. So that is a con that some single family homes do have associations. Okay guys, well that pretty much covers not only the pros and cons of single family homes for condos and townhomes, but also some different concepts, theories, and ideas when it comes to the differences between condos, townhomes, and single family homes. So if you guys have any questions or you want to reach out, I got my contact information right here, or you can directly DM me on any of my social media platforms. If you guys got any value out of this content, if you guys can do me a huge favor, smash that like button as well as click the subscribe and notification bell so you get notified whenever I drop videos just like this. With that being said, I'm Patrick with PatrickLongleyRealty.com, powered by eXp Realty. Hope you have a beautiful day. I'll talk to you soon. Aloha.